Footpath maintenance. So again, the same as above. Council stopped funding maintenance on footpaths 5 years ago, rightly or wrongly. So when people get potholes in footpaths and the driveways, they assume that West Road's not doing their job. We don't have any contract with council for footpaths or driveway maintenance. It's just on a per request basis. So that's pretty much the end of the presentation, and then we're open to questions.
Thank you for that. Very interesting. Councillors, let's open it up. We'll start with the Deputy Mayor Brothers.
The question I've got to ask you, Graham, about a month ago, councillors went on a bit of a recce down to South Western, look at all our assets and so on, and we had a most enjoyable time. But one of the most entertaining parts of it was driving down and back, because every time we turned the corner, we came across a West Roads truck, or excavator, or smiling workman, or West Roads, seriously, and there were so many instances of that, we just looked at each other and thought, they must have known we were coming, this isn't set up.
Yeah.
So tell us it wasn't set up. So you didn't know when you come.
I knew you were coming.
No, they didn't. But hey, congratulations, your guys were everywhere, and we really noticed it.
Because we do all the work on the state highway down that way, you're going to come across our guys a lot more. Yeah, there's teams that just are on the state highways.
Yeah, there was so many. It was amazing.
So the only fine day we had.
Councillor Martin.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Graham, for your presentation. Peter, thanks for your service to West Roads. 25 years from the beginning to where it is now is commendable, and there's a lot of, leadership's lonely, and particularly in a small community. So thank you for your dedication and commitment to the role that you have brought over the years, and Graham the same. Great job. You covered off a lot of really important things, and it's really relevant. It'd be great to show that presentation to the whole community so they understand the benefit that West Roads provides. We often hear, you've highlighted some topical issues, but actually, generally, having a company of that size in our community makes such a difference in terms of employment levels, in terms of benefit to other businesses. It's fabulous. So aside from the direct benefits we get, there's all these flow-on benefits that I think people sometimes overlook. So thanks for the update.
Councillor Kotahi.
Thank you to you both. I mean, both of you, the longevity of service in both your roles, says it all really. But it also tells me, because I look at a lot of the people you currently now have working, I'm not just talking about my son either, but thanks for that. But I look at a lot, you've got some great workers now that are a part of your team as well, and I think that they're all doing an outstanding job out there, and it was interesting. We did think it was a setup when we were driving south, because it was literally every corner we turned at. The growth of your business over the years, but also the return as a council-controlled organisation back to council, and for our ratepayers, I think is absolutely fantastic. And the consistency around your continued growth, I think, is fabulous as well. It is beyond me why that contract was ever cancelled back in 2015. So I certainly look forward to working through some solutions so that we can maintain and get those services probably back up and running for all of our areas in the future.
Francois.
Just a couple of comments and a question. It's really good. I'm really impressed with the fact that we're paying a living wage as a minimum. So that's really good. Well done there. Also, I think it's important to get our heads into the sustainability area, because that stuff's going to be coming at us left, right, and centre, just like health and safety in the future. So it's nice to know that that stuff's happening and we're in there thinking about it. So that's good too. The question I have is around, I guess, diversity at a board level and a senior management level. And what I mean by that is, what do we have? Do we have women at that level? within the organisation?
Only at the senior management level where our chief financial officer is Tracy. We have how many do we have in the contract managers? We've got Donna.
Workers.
Yeah, and quite a few workers. We don't have any on the board. That's just, in fact, one of the difficulties we've faced is actually replacing the board. And so the two replacements we've had at the moment have actually come from Canterbury, because we didn't have anyone available without conflicts on the West Coast to do the job. The board replacements is where we struggle. And there was particular skills that we were looking for, like that contracting, that practical on the ground contracting experience. Which is what the skill we needed at the board level at that time.
Good. That's good to hear too, because we'd hate to fall into the old stale male space going forward. And then secondly, I guess in terms of diversity as well, is there any Māori at the senior levels and on the board?
It's at board level and senior management level, I don't believe so.
Cool. Oh, well, there's some work there to do anyway, guys. So anyway, thank you.
Councillor Kennedy.
Yeah, thank you. Just a first question is, are you planning on retiring any debt soon, or will you continue to borrow as much as you can to continue to grow the company?
So philosophy around debt at the moment is like, debt is relatively cheap. We can grow our profits. With that debt. But our philosophy is more around holding our debt level where it is. And as we grow our debt, our equity over the next few years, our actual, the amount of equity that we have, or our debt to equity ratio, is actually going to decrease. And our assets to equity ratio will increase, because we're not aiming to take down the debt, we're just aiming to hold it where it is. And as we keep raising our equity, it's going to change our ratios a wee bit.
Okay, that's fine. Another question, the 25% of contracts that are from Westland District Council, what percentage of the profit do they account for West Roads?
It changes every year, depending on emergency events, flooding, that sort of thing. So right at the moment, very, very little, because it's just lump sum and measure and value work.
So we generally use the Westland District Council, or actually, in fact, a lot of our maintenance contracts, we use them as a base. They're often priced actually quite low. We use them as a base to then be able to do other work in that area around at higher margin.
Okay.
Very hard. It varies all the time, depending on whether we're, some months we'll have a really good run on them. Then we're into a lot of just maintenance type stuff that are lump sum, and but we price them at the low end of the range.
Just to give you, last year we did particularly well in Canterbury. That made more than a third of our overall profit. Also had the Western Milk job, which went well, and we had the emergency work, the NOC contract. All the other contracts that we had, maintenance type activities, don't make great margins.
They don't make great margins, that's fine. Another question is, you say you have to pay the living wage in Canterbury. Do you pay the living wage in Westland?
Almost everybody receives the living wage. Maybe one or two holiday university students may not, entry level.
They don't need it because they only spend it on their
We do pay the living wage.
Okay, sweet, that's cool. Fine, thank you.
Councillor Hartshorn.
Yeah, thanks, Peter, and thanks, Graham. No, it's good to see the growth that's going on. At the end of the day, you're creating jobs and money and turnover for the town, and yeah, that's good to see.
Councillor Levy.
Yeah, that was really interesting. Thank you very much. Look forward to a conversation maybe about footpaths in the future because it's always coming up down here. Just, you're talking about some of your contracts are, minimal profit. Do you have, or often, or ever have ones that run at a loss?
Yes. Yep. Not intentionally, but we do have one. We had one in Greymouth last year that caused us quite a problem. And we are running some at the moment in Christchurch at a loss, because we priced them really quite low, just to keep the staff working until we could actually get some better priced work. Generally no, very occasionally yes.
Councillor Davidson.
Yeah, thanks for the report, guys. And it's great to hear, that burn maintenance has been reached. That contract. That's really good to see, and it'd be really good to see if the footpath will be reached, because that'd be the jackpot.
Thank you. Just a comment, really, the council, I think, is really fortunate to have this asset that other councils would give their right arm for, because it's pretty much threefold. It's not only the dividend, benefit of the dividend and the subvention payments, but also the employment. 66 staff in Westland alone, and most of them around here would make it one of the biggest employers in town. And then, of course, it's the specialist service that Westbrook offers. So, Westland is really fortunate to have it.
Thanks, Paul. Look, in wrapping it up, I want to congratulate the Board of West Roads, and it proves the value of consistency on 25 years of successful performance. You started on the 1st of January 1995, and this council put in $1.4 million worth of plant. Some of it was a bit dodgy as well. And today, here we are in 2020, and if you took a reasonable PE basis for evaluation, if someone offered 15 million, we'd have to say no. So it's incredible, the increase in value that you've created. I read some letters to the newspaper in 1995, 96, and they were just like what we experience today, just different writers. As they agonised over their decision to place the Works Department of Council into a company, West Roads has a 20-year sustainable business plan, and it will add value to council long term. As Peter said, or Graham said, acquired Central Western Services in 97, Williams Road Metals in 2001, Trenching Dynamics in 2014. And in 1997, West Roads produced a rate of return of 24.8%. If you look at the average return, they've never had a year where they've made a loss, and the average rate of return far exceeds any normal investment criteria. So West Roads has produced a financial return to council virtually unequalled in the country. What's really important is they've also won dozens of contracts at hundreds of thousands of dollars less than the next enterprise. And we see that in our term of council. We've seen it where the savings have been on one contract alone, 800,000 on one contract as a saving. And that's saving our ratepayers hundreds of thousands of dollars. The staff numbers, as Paul said, it's a very large employer, and it's part of a really big part of our council's economic development. The $2 million roughly before tax profit achieved by West Roads equates to 25% of our total general rate take. And my aim has always been to see income from investments for council cover our total general rate take. Now that requires West Roads to grow and our CCOs to grow, because that's where that additional income is coming from. So it's a big point, and it's guys, on behalf of council and councillors here, I'd like to present you with a certificate of appreciation. And Meg's in charge of photography.
Put the heavy face on.
Yeah, that's it. And it's an appreciation of 25 years of good work, but value being added to our Western economy. And I'd love to be able to come back and be in the audience when you present a profit of $4 million, which will make up nearly 50% of our general rates. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Actually, Pete, just before you leave, just out of curiosity, because you guys have been there for a long length of foot time, what did you anticipate back then your vision would be in 25 years from back then? What, you know, I mean.
It was, yeah, well, starting off, it was survive, because the whole climate was changing in terms of how we had to do contracts. We had to competitively tender instead of being awarded. So initially it was survive, then we were largely locally focused, and so we didn't actually have that plan. We thought about moving further afield, but to be honest, there was enough to do in our own area. Diversification started being thought about maybe 5, 6 years before we actually did it. Going, hey, look, you know, well, maybe we need to be over the hill, because sometimes our weather can be shit and theirs will be good. And so you can have periods like that, so they help balance us. And just, in fact, to bring a bit of different skills in the Westroads, which is actually what the TD for, was a bunch of different skills that have helped us over this side as well.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, gentlemen, and we'll look forward to the next reports, as we always do. I'll invite a councillor to resolve that the presentation from Peter Cuff and Graham Kelly, Westroads, be received. Councillor Cogan, will I have a seconder? Yep. Councillor Hartshorn, thank you. Those in favour?
Aye.
That was very impressive, very impressive. Move on to item 8 of the agenda, and it's the staff reports. The first staff report is Gillespie's Beach Miners Cemetery. It's on pages 7 to 11 of your agenda, and invite Louis to come up and present the report.
Thank you, Worship, and afternoon, councillors. I take the proposal in front of council as the closure of the Gillespie Miners Cemetery. I take the report as read and open up for any questions.
Thanks, Louis. We'll start with Paul.
Thank you. It makes perfect sense to me to close it. After all this time. However, where it says that public consultation is not considered necessary, I just wonder if we ought, as a courtesy, to consult with the Williams and the Sullivans. Although looking at the list of the names that are of people interred there, there doesn't seem to be any direct descendants of them, but I'm aware that not so many years ago the Williams family had a reunion, and Cardinal Williams was there, and they went to that cemetery. So there's a connection there, and I think as a courtesy we should be talking to them.
So at this point in time, we haven't consulted with those, but they could certainly approach consultation.
Thanks, Luke.
Because they are, when they're pioneer families, and they're still just up the road.
Yeah.
Councillor Davidson.
No, nothing.
Councillor Neal.
Yeah, good point, Paul. And yeah, can you give us the report, thank you.
Councillor Hartshorn.
No, nothing to add, Your Worship.
Councillor Kennedy.
Just one thing, have we spoken to Doc about maintaining the joint yet, Louis?
Yes, correct.
And they're going to maintain it?
Yes, so part of the closure of the cemetery means that it actually gets reinvested back to Crown as Crown land, but it is surrounded by dock land on all four sides of the cemetery boundaries. So the recommendation is that dock then takes over and continue to maintain.
No, that's fine. And I'd like to, just what Paul said. I think it's important to talk to those families there. Cool.
Thanks, Councillor Kennedy. Francois?
No, Ryan asked my question. I'm happy, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hartshaw?
Yes, I've already spoken to me. Yep.
Did we?
Yes.
Good job.
It's on two screens.
You're on the other side.
Yeah.
It's on two screens. Councillor Kogan?
One of the questions actually was asked by Ryan. Thank you very much around that, because I think it's most important, even if we are handing these on, that we ensure when we hand these assets on that they are still maintained, you know.
Right.
And I also agree around, and I'm not even sure if it's just restricted to just the Williamses and the Sullivans down there. The Fox community is actually quite a tight-knit little community. So, it would probably be, I would have thought, quite fitting that it was just notified and, you know, to the general community down there that that's the closure, but that they have, that they know that there is something in place with DOC, confirmed for ongoing maintenance and care of the area, which I assume would still allow it to be a public area for people to go and visit.
Correct.
Yes. Yeah. So, I just think maybe if we could extend it more to the community, to engage with the community.
So, through your worship, just to clarify, councillors, we're still intending to close. You were just asking us to consult with community.
Yeah.
In what regards?
Yeah.
Well, it's just to notify them
Courtesy,
that,
yes.
it's a courtesy that it is going
Yeah.
to be closing, but that we have ensured that we've had discussions with DOC and that there will be ongoing maintenance. Yeah.
Councillor Martin?
Thanks, Your Worship. Just a point around this maintenance, this annual maintenance. I thought council was obliged to maintain closed cemeteries.
So council have not maintained the cemetery actually to date. And the requirement and the reason is that it is actually surrounded by dockland.
So they've just done it by way of being in that area anyway.
That's formalising and actually put the property correctly in control of who's actually been maintaining it.
Because $1,000 seems nominal and quite cheap, I would have thought.
Correct.
I think where this recommendation, this report, which is quite straightforward, but it's probably, as the head of the LTP, is actually putting in funding for other cemeteries that may be closed or proposed to be closed to ensure they are, mown and, regularly and sprayed if needed. Because that photo, looks like they're doing a good job of maintenance. Yeah. It probably doesn't look like the same for all of our closed cemeteries. So we just bear that in mind that we need to keep, funding these things.
Deputy Mayor Craft, okay, would invite a councillor to move that A, council receive the report, and B, that subject to approval from the Department of Conservation, council approve staff initiating the process for closure of the Gillespie's Beach Miners Cemetery with the Minister of Health as prescribed in Part 6, Section 41 of the Burials and Cremations Act of 1964. And could I have a move? Councillor Kogan, do I have a second? Councillor Neal. All those in favour, please.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion is carried. Move on to the schedule of meetings, which is for 2021. Thanks, Louis. Pages 12 to 15 of your agenda.
Yes, so good afternoon again, councillors. This is just to confirm the schedule of meetings for the 2021 there's one variation to this schedule which we're proposing to cancel a January council meeting. It's fair to say that there's a lot of work within council right now, particularly with the long-term plan and budgeting process, and we don't have any pressing matters to bring to council in January, so we're proposing that we don't hold a council meeting in January. So take the risk report as read and open up for any questions.
Thanks, Simon. It brings it into line with Buller, and so open for discussion. Any councillors have a comment on
it? You go.
Sorry, the only thing was I just suggested to, but I didn't realise, Simon, they were already discussing that, was that there'll be some discussion around joining some of the committees.
So just to clarify, following recent, the last Audit and Risk Committee meeting, it's fair to say that the way the committees have been operating, some have been effective, some have been subpar in terms of, I suppose, effectiveness. So Exec Team are proposing to revisit how the committee structure works for council. That won't, so we'll propose to bring a paper back to council as early as we can in the new year, but then we won't have any change to the subcommittees until 1st of July next year. So status quo until we've worked out a way forward with committee structures.
Councillor Martin, did you have something you want to raise?
Yeah, I did. Just regarding the times, can we just clarify until the 1st of July the timings of the meetings, because it would be great, particularly for all the committee meetings, because that's come up every time we try and schedule a meeting, and I'd just like it clarified so we know what we're doing well in advance, particularly for community development and Parks, Reserves and Environment Subcommittee.
So at the bottom of that sheet, you'll see the starting times proposed.
Yeah, I just want them clarified so people are very comfortable that that's what's proposed, because the community development one I think works. The general feedback from the Parks Reserve Subcommittee is 3 p.m. does not work, and they would prefer the same start time as the Community Development Committee. And Simon, that's up to you, I think, to comment on now.
So I will, before we finalise this, we'll have a revision within council. We have pushed back previously, mainly because of staff commitment and time after work hours. It has put a lot of, the amount of committees we do have, and has put a lot of pressure on staff commitment and working after hours. I realise it makes it difficult for members of the public in some capacity to make themselves available for committees. But I also have to weigh up the factor of staff commitment as well. So I would prefer to keep it at 3 p.m. if possible, based on that fact.
Well, we need to, with all due respect, we need to immediately review who's on that committee, Your Worship, because there's no point having committee meetings that only half the committee can go to, and advise that well in advance that they are not available for 3 o'clock meetings. So if that is the position of council, we need to immediately review that, because there's no point people being on it if they can't attend meetings.
Well, in that case, let's agree to set the schedule and staff liaise with the members of the committee in relation to their availability.
And this may change too if some of the committees are joined together, won't it?
No, it's not going to happen until after.
So this is the current structure.
Okay.
Yeah.
If we do change the committee structure, then we'll have to come back with a revised calendar at the same time.
Certainly on the Parks and Reserves one, Latham, thank you for bringing that up. I think it's really important. And I don't think that the Parks and Reserve Committee has worked, because it's been a bit mishmash as to who can attend. And I wonder if it can become more of a discussion group, a community discussion group at a time that suits them. And then it gets fed back to staff. Do we need such a large staff presence at that point?
just a point of note is, based on the current schedule, there's only one forecast meeting for that committee within the first 6 months of next year. So we could possibly review that timing just around that one meeting.
Which possibly isn't enough meetings, like to really get the discussion happening in the community. If we want community input, once in the next 6 months isn't enough.
That's based on the current terms of reference.
I think you're all raising really valid points, and I guess going back to that, when we first proposed the committee structure and we talked about the fact that it would increase the staff workload, we would need more staff, additional staff, and councillors willingly said, yes, let's pursue the committee structure, let's support the CE's recommendation to do it. It would be great to think that now we're not turning around and saying we cannot resource the committees, because I think certainly my interpretation, understanding of when we established them was we need to put whatever resourcing we can in place to ensure they're effective. And I think a review of committees will be skewed, particularly for committees that haven't been able to function, for cancelled meetings or for members being unable to attend because of timing, to then say, well, it's probably easy just to cancel that committee because it hasn't achieved anything. Whereas I think we need to look at it, I absolutely agree with you around the staffing being a significant workload. No one's disputing that, but I think we have to address, that through you by providing the support needed, rather than say, well, let's get rid of all the committees or some.
Without speaking full silent, the issue that the Chief Executive has raised is that bringing staff in outside of normal working hours is logistically difficult and very expensive.
Yep.
And that's needs to be
factored in.
What needs to be identified first, so that if in fact it's going to cost a lot more to do something like that, we need to know what it is.
Yeah.
Just to highlight resourcing discussions back in the time, it was to do with more administration support, and we have brought that resource in-house. In between then and now, we've had $40 million worth of projects thrown at us. We've actually put a hand up for them. That's pretty well where the extra resource has been sucked up, particularly now that we've got a lot of reporting functions going in, and Leslie can vouch for this. The financial side of it is severely under-resourced now because of those projects.
Yeah.
So it's catch-22.
Yeah.
Can I suggest we put the discussion in relation to the April Parks and Reserves committee meeting into our February meeting, and let it as a general discussion? Would that suit everybody? Okay. Paul.
I was just going to say I do agree with Councillor Martin. And I think there's a rationalisation of the committees is justified. That's a work in progress. The mid-afternoon start for all these committees is difficult, and it might be, perhaps I understand about staffing with the managers, obviously, but it might be there's a compromise that a little later, they start later in the day, and so they and stay a little later for the meeting, perhaps, so it's not eaten into their evening.
And is this, Paul, is this in particular to the Parks and Reserves?
No. There's planning and regulatory, economic development, audit and risk is a much earlier time.
Okay.
Your Worship, I recommend that we adopt it based on the fact that we are going to revisit this in the first quarter in terms of how the committees are structured. At that time, we could potentially review the timing as well.
Happy with that, councillors? Mm-hmm. Someone like to move?
Yep.
Councillor Cogan, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ian Graves. Those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the review of the Western District Council speed limits register. It's on pages 16 to 33 of your agenda, And I'd invite firstly Edward Guy's presentation. Sorry, Edward, Managing Director for Rationale, is that correct? Have I got that right? Jump the gun there, haven't I? Can I first ask whether that's going to impact on this discussion? Whether in fact yours should be first?
No, so Edward is presenting on the second report that we've got, the program business case.
Yep.
So it's the development of that has led to equity here.
Thank you for that. Investment recommendation, all yours, sir.
Kia ora koutou, ko ora kai, taku ingoa. Thank you very much for having me here today. Look, by way of introductions, I'm the Managing Director of a company called Rationale. I founded the company 21 years ago. I'm a civil engineer, been working with local authorities in transportation and other things for all of that time. This is a presentation on 18 months of work, and it includes your transport program for the next 10 years, as well as bullers and greymounts as well. I just wonder, you're obviously a well-appointed program, how much time have I really got to deliver this?
As much as you need. Yep.
It takes about half an hour.
Yep.
Okay, so as long as you guys are all right with that. It is quite important, and it has been an extensive piece of work, and we'd really like to make sure that we actually get the messages across that you need to hear. What I'd like to do today is actually take you back and say, how have we got to this point? And I think that will provide you with some confidence in the investment program. I'd like to explain to you where we are now and where we need to keep going, continue to build momentum on the work that we've been doing. Obviously, this piece of work has been, it's been fundamental having people like Carl working with us. We've had all the teams from Buller and Greymouth working with us extensively, and Waka, Kotahi and New Zealand Transport Agency as well. And without that collaboration, we wouldn't have actually got as far as we have. It's been a fantastic experience. We first talked about collaboration back in 2014. REACH is the Road Efficiency Group. And it was actually on site in this building in 2014 with a couple of senior members of the New Zealand Transport Agency. Then in 2016, a private Section 17A, Section 17A is about, and the Department of Internal Affairs, it was Section 17A about your cost effectiveness in terms of delivery. You'll probably be aware of the regional planning one, but there was also a regional transport one as well. And what the regional transport one came out and said, look, if you guys increase your collaboration, you'll actually deliver better value for money. And personally, I think that's definitely been the case. So by 2017, you delivered your first combined asset management plan across the whole region. And that was the beginning of where we are today in terms of extensive collaboration across those three councils. So the objectives were, and this is not my words, these are the words out of this document, was to improve investor confidence because it was fairly low. Deliver now with an eye to the future. So, hey, carry on doing what you're doing, but actually try and improve what you're doing as well. Making sure you have the right people and resources to deliver, and then, hey, doing the right thing, doing the right thing at the right time. So there's a lot of stuff here that it's just by way, I'm just explaining to you that there's detail behind it. The program that came out of here, so there are options, and the program that came out of it is a thing called Preparing for Change, and we've been working on that. So in 2019, the date there is October 2019, so just over a year ago, we established this project. So it's not quite 18 months, it's more like 14 months. But obviously it probably took a bit of time to get to this establishment report completed. So in our company, we believe in establishing projects, putting the effort up front, planning prior to make sure that we actually really get the job done. Look, again, this is a complex diagram, but this is actually the set out piece of work that we're now down right at the bottom in the green boxes, right at the bottom. We've worked through that whole program and they're work streams running vertically. It's asset management, data and programming. I can't actually read it from here, I'm just doing it off from what I remember. Engagement, one network, capability and collaboration, and then procurement. They're the 6 work streams we've been working on, and we worked through each one of those over the last 14 months. We also set up a team and organisational structure. So we found that even though this is actually quite an informal collaboration between the 3 TLAs, we've been quite formal in the background in terms of how we've structured ourselves. We've made sure we have monthly meetings, we have quarterly in-person meetings as well. So from that perspective, it's been really handy. This is a thing, apparently the program business case is attached to your agenda. You would have seen that it's quite an extensive document. It's actually, that's not our requirements. This is the requirement of the New Zealand Transport Agency. And it follows basically the better business case that Treasury put out, and it's the New Zealand Transport Agency program business case approach. And then we've had to integrate that with the IIM. I know this is a whole lot of stuff, and I apologise, but it's important. The IIM is the International Infrastructure Asset Management Manual that was actually delivered in New Zealand in 1996, and it's gone through multiple versions and it's now used internationally as well. So it's a pretty good document. So we've created an innovative approach to actually bring those 2 pieces together. So the thing you've got with you in your agenda is the PBC. So these are some key things that we actually needed to build data and evidence that builds confidence. Yep. So that was one of the big problems, was the confidence that particularly the New Zealand Transport Agency had in the programs that were being delivered. So we found out the district and regional issues, that's the green box. We actually did some stakeholder workshops. We also did a community survey, and then we actually gathered up some actual engineering data and evidence about what needed to be done. The thing on the right is called an investment logic map, but basically that's saying, hey, look, the things we need to focus on in terms of the outcomes we want is we want network resilience. We want to make sure we have tourism accessibility and facilities. And I'm going to show you a bit further on through the presentation that we changed that 30% as a function of COVID. We actually said, right, okay, let's change tact here, partway through the project. Freight optimisation and asset condition renewals. Now, there's a bit of a change around, as I said, and I'll take to that later. Oops. We had a stakeholders workshop. We had people from the tourism industry, people from the freight industry. We had emergency services. We had other interested parties. It was a pretty interesting experience. We held that in the Regional Council building on the 14th of October, and basically, there wasn't a lot going on. They beat us up about the state highway, even though we were looking at the local roads. So we really struggled to get them to focus on the local roading network. We were trying to look for problems, which I think, if you look at that, it's a positive thing. It's not, they couldn't really fault your networks too much. So I think that's something that, and when we did the community survey, you'll see similar sort of outcomes. So the community survey, it went out and it was opened for submission for 6 weeks. We had 316 responses, which is actually statistically quite strong. That's actually quite a lot of people actually filled out that, and it was a reasonable number of things in it. What do you think works well on the West Coast? And here again, this is probably why our actual stakeholders workshop didn't actually say too much. People said roads are in good condition and well maintained. So I think take your head off, and that's a pretty statistically strong answer. I can't prompt response and maintenance. So, well done, West Roads. They're obviously doing well as well. So, but then the third one, there's nothing good about it. So there is a few detractors out there that you may want to try.
I assume there was nothing to say.
No, I get that. We found that quite funny actually, that 15% of people said there's nothing good about it. But hey, you're going to get that. But it sounds like a pretty good West Coast answer if you ask me. And then, hey, what do you feel doesn't work well? And there's safety concerns. So we have got some evidence to suggest that safety is deteriorating. There's personal risk. But it's, in saying that, you don't have a lot of deaths and serious injuries on the local roading network. So, but there is some evidence to suggest that we need to probably work a bit more on that. And then the flip side is people think that the roads are in poor condition as well. And then poor contract management. So we've got, it's a bit polarised. Some people think you're doing really good, and then some people think you're not doing so good. But I think from the previous slide, 25% of people think the roads are in good condition. So hats off to you guys. And then there was these are little points, so we could actually work out where people lived, and in Greymouth and Hokitika, people, the biggest thing was footpaths, which was interesting, listening to the fact that you'd stopped maintaining them. So that was one of the things that really stood out. But apart from that, we had some other messages, and what we could do is we could bundle up some of these things, and we had 105 different projects that we wanted to analyse from some of this work, the stakeholder work as well. So I'll get onto that a bit later. One of the key pieces of work, and where a lot of effort was put into, was some work by Becca. They were contracted to look at your pavements and understand more about the life cycle of your pavements. You know, are you doing the right amount of renewals? Are you doing the right amount of resurfacing? And the other piece of work that was important was from WSP on the bridges. Both things, you have deteriorating pavement. You know, I'm talking generally speaking across the region. You have deteriorating pavements, and so we've lifted up the work program, but also the bridges. I actually went and have done some investigations as part of the work on bridges and pavements and intersections that are like with Carl. And look, there is some problems out there that you guys need to address. And then we also did some capital investigations. As I said, we did 105 projects that we looked at, we analysed them, and then we whittled them down. I'll get onto that a bit later on. So what happened with COVID? You know, 1.1 million visitors, and 700,000 of those were from overseas. Hey, it hasn't probably been as bad as what we all thought at the time that we went through this analysis. But what it meant is, you know, and look, Arataki, so we'll have a look at that. That's Waka Kotahi's sort of forward view. You guys are second, you know, in terms of job losses across the whole nation after Otago because of this. So what we did, and I'll talk about Arataki. So this is Waka Kotahi's, you know, future view. This is how they look at things. They're not really interested in this is the West Coast. So this is your region, not the rest of New Zealand. They're not particularly interested in urban form, and they're not particularly interested in transformative urban mobility. So they're pretty low on their priorities for the West Coast. They're sort of things that probably go to the large metropolitans as opposed to the West Coast. But they are interested in health and safety, safety of road users, and also climate change. But they were actually focusing on regional development, and then they pulled back the dial. So this is just to give you an idea about where Waka Kotahi is actually positioning themselves at the moment. So, as I said earlier, we changed direction. We still stuck with network resilience being a key thing, but after we'd done all that research and stuff and started looking at the network, we've actually realised that asset condition and renewal was probably more important than tourism. The freight task remained the same. You guys should ask any questions if you want as we go through this. I'll try and go as fast as I can. Look, as I said, we had 105 different projects identified. We put them through what's known as the investment decision-making framework, and basically came out with 5 projects or packages for each council that we went away and analysed. We also looked at how well you're delivering asset management, and we also assessed your levels of service. The level of service stuff, we didn't find that you had too many issues, so that's another good thing, and it reflects what the community's seeing and what also your stakeholders are seeing. In terms of asset management, you've got some big gaps. And we've set yourself a bit of a program of maturing in the way that you look at asset management. And this is a reflection of that. These are actually your data quality. You've got quite poor data quality compared to the rest of New Zealand. And you can see that by those scores. So the middle bar reflects where you guys are, and then where you relate compared to the rest of the country. So you can see there that your good data is a lot less than the rest of New Zealand, you've got a lot more red data. So this is the road efficiency group, and what it does is it provides you with a benchmark to work from. So Waka Kotahi through this process are really focused on you guys sort of improving this stuff. Yep, and I think there's a lot of room and a lot of scope to improve it. But we've made progress. Well, it doesn't say that we've made progress according to those tables, but we're working on it. And so part of this, I don't know if this has actually got a light on it. It does. Well, it doesn't work on the TV though. Okay. No. Okay, you can see the little red boxes down the bottom there. So this is your expenditure on asset management. You're right at the tail end. So you spend less as a total, and you also spend less. You're right down the bottom end. Can everyone see that? Westland is second from the bottom, Buller is third from the bottom, and Grey is fourth from the bottom. So you're really under-investing in your asset management space. All right.
How's that tabulated? Is it in regard to kilometres of road?
So
Investment or what?
Yeah, the little grey boxes, that is per kilometre. The orange box is total spend. So it's got both components of it.
So if you haven't got a big rate base, you can't invest in it.
No, it hasn't got per capita expenditure, but it has got per lane kilometre. So both of those factors, total cost, you're way below on both, really, in terms of total spend and per kilometre spend. Yep. No, that's all right. But what we have done is we've put a program together that's actually boosted that. So this has gone into, well, it goes into Waka Kotahi is the final version tomorrow. So we had to develop, as part of doing a program business case, we have to actually look at different options of investment.
No one moved.
Wait for the second one to go.
Yeah.
So as part of delivering any form of business case, we have to look at options. It's all part of it. So these are investment options. Basically, option one is just doing what you're doing today. Option two is optimise. So we actually had discussions with each council manager to look at different investment models. And then option three, which is the one we've actually gone with, is about preserving your assets. So we've focused on that. You know, how do you continue to preserve your asset? Because if you don't, you're going to start seeing some bigger life cycle costs. So life cycle costs look out into the future. And option four was where we're looking at increased levels of service. So we've done some analysis on those. This is again, I know I'm not expecting you to look through this in any detail, but it's all on that document. But basically preserving your asset came out on top. These are the total costs for each TLA. So I suppose the good thing is by doing this collaboratively, you get a peek in to see what happens with each of the other TLAs and how much they're proposing to spend. And you can see there option three. So option one is what you're currently spending today. So you'll be interested in this. Option two is a little bit of improvement based on conversations with the likes of Carl. And then option three is the one we've actually, that's our preferred option. And that's about preserving our asset. So I'm going to give you, basically all we're suggesting is you invest more in asset management, you invest more in your bridges, and you invest more in your pavements. Yep. So a lot of this has already gone to Waka Kotahi in the draft form, and we've already had real positive feedback from them that they're quite happy to support it. And yesterday we presented to the Regional Transport Committee, and there was some positivity from Jim Harlan and Pete Connors from Waka Kotahi as well, going, if it's evidence-based, we're likely to support it. So, hey, look, between, across the region, we're talking about going from 43 or 44 million in option one through to 54 million. So we're talking about a 25% increase. So, that sounds like a lot, but when we start breaking it down, which I'll get into, as I said before, look, we're focused on renewals of bridges and asset management, and we believe that all of those things will deliver to those benefits that we were chasing of asset condition, freight level of service, road safety and resilience. This is a bit of a difficult conversation around the SPR. between Past and Jackson's Bay. There has been negotiations going on. We're the meat and the sandwich doing this because we know you guys don't want to relinquish the SPR status. So the way we've kind of done that is we've run with, and what we've said in the document is this is not our decision, but at the moment we've put in the program so you transition to local road status after 3 years, which is in accordance with the conversations you've had to date. And what that has meant though is that you've got significant investment for the next 3 years in those SPRs. And that big 25% jump mainly sits with Waka Kotahi and not each individual, not Westland and not Buller. So only Buller and Westland have a special purpose road. Is everyone aware of the status of the special purpose road?
We're pretty up with it, and we're not going to have a bar of it.
Yep.
So don't put too much effort in.
No, we didn't, and we took this middle road where we didn't want to annoy them, and we said, and we made it clear that this is not a final decision, and that's to be had, that conversation.
Sorry, just on that very specific point, what's the likelihood Transit sometime in the future are going to force it on us?
I don't know what legal ability they have to do that. Carl might have more of an idea.
No, I'm not entirely sure. The board has mandated, well, this is the Transport Agency board, has mandated that all SPRs transition to local road status by 2024. And that's why there's been transition plans created. But I do understand that there are a number of other local authorities that are in the same position as us that are not happy about it and wanting to challenge it further, but as it stands, it doesn't go further at this point.
It'll just be an unmaintained road, same as the Caramel Bluff. I'm sure someone will come to the party.
Yeah. So it's been drafted in the way in the document. So as transition would occur, but we've put a caveat in there that that's not our place. It needs a governance decision one way or the other, which way we're going to head. And we didn't want to be the meat and the sandwich, so we've taken a pop each way basically. And we didn't really have too many options. We just needed to do the work. So this is probably where you're starting to get interested in the actual, what does this mean for you guys? And so the bottom line is probably the key line. Apologies that that's so small, but I only sucked that out of the program business case yesterday. This is Buller's increase in rates. So you can see there they've probably got about a 2% increase in rates because of the program that we put forward. Yep, it's about 6%. We didn't put the numbers up for Waka Kotahi yesterday, but Peter Connors managed to do a quick calculation. He said, oh, this looks like 6% per annum for us and about, on average, 2% for each TLA. So that's Buller. Grey's a little bit more. They're nearly 3% per annum in the next 3 years. And then finally, you guys make that work. Sorry, I skipped you guys. Yeah, so, and then Westland, you're probably the lowest, about 1.5%. So I don't feel that we've tried to be really sensible. So the whole country is looking for a 30% increase. This is Jim Harlan's words yesterday, a 30% increase in the investment in transportation. And we've heard things like, well, if Canterbury got exactly what it wanted, there'd be nothing left for the whole country. Well, that might have just been Christchurch. So I think they've been, I think the likes of Jim and Peter Connors and Arfi, our investment manager, have gone, you guys have done a sensible job, you've evidence-based it. And I suppose what we need from you guys is some support, because this goes in on Friday, to say that, you're supporting it in principle. Obviously, you can't say that you're going to provide for a 1.5% rates increase at this point.
Councillor, I just, I've attempted to read the document.
It's an intense document. Yeah, I apologise for that. That's just the nature of it.
And I right at the start there, you talk about you're presenting it today, and then tomorrow, that's the final.
No, that's not the final. That's there's room to move, right? So, but it's unfortunately Waka Kotahi are ahead of you guys in terms of your long-term planning. Yeah.
So who's presenting it to Greymouth and Miller?
We're all working together.
Yeah. So have you done Greymouth?
No, I'm doing it this evening.
And Buller?
Not until February. Yeah. But they've got the conversation happening, and Sharon and the team are all over it. So I think it won't be that it won't go into their thinking in terms of their long-term plan.
So just through the chair, through your worship. So what we're proposing to do is take these numbers, put them in our LTP conversation with council, and go out for consultation based on these numbers. So all we're asking today is to understand the next 10 years worth of funding based on these principles, and then we'll actually put this in the budget process for analysis.
And if it doesn't get agreed, then we change all of the programs. And if you want more, that could be more difficult than less.
Okay. So can you confirm that the SPR status of Jackson Bay in the proposal that we're putting forward does not allow for it to be returned to us?
No, so at the moment, you'll see the line there at 2024. Yep. We've assumed the transition would go on the basis that you're getting an extensive amount of funding now. That's kind of like, I suppose, the bait for you guys. And if you chose not to do that, then I would assume you wouldn't get the funding for the SPR. And that's something for the governance to determine, because I worked on the first program. I worked with Carl and Waka Kotahi 2 years ago to try and work through this to actually get an agreement, and we got quite closely to it, and then we haven't been able to make that stick. So as I said before, we're the meat and the sandwich. Here comes Carl. This is good. He can take some of the heat.
No, it's not meant to be heat. It's when you say you've virtually got agreement, it's never been.
No, we're not saying that. So in our document, it says we are not guaranteeing that at all, because we've positioned this. So we've had to sit in the middle and say, we've put these figures forward to you on the basis that transition would occur, but that's not our decision at this point.
So what we've had to do up until now with the Waka Kotahi is formulate a transition plan which details works that are carried out on the Jacksons Bay Road prior to any handover. So the level of work at the moment, all the work on that road is 100% funded. So there's an enhanced level of work to get it up to a better standard before it's handed over. But that transition plan has not been signed off by yourselves or Waka Kotahi board as such. We've worked through it with senior members of the agency, but it hasn't actually come to finality at this point.
So just to help me, what's the level of capital expenditure proposed for on that road before the handover, which will no doubt bring it up to state highway standard?
At this stage, I think we've increased the spending for the next 3 years by a further 2.5 to 3 million.
So what's the total spend for those?
I don't know if I'll be able to find that quickly.
Because that road,
I think on that road, the total spend, I think will be something about
4 million.
Between 4 and 5 million on that road.
So all that area in the corridor has disappeared.
So option 3 is 6.7.
So we're actually doing a big body of work this season on that corridor section. So we've got a large sum of money that we're spending on that as well. So that's all part of that transition.
Councillor Kennedy.
Sorry, just on this, and that figure seems way too low, because as long as those logs are under the road, the council can't afford to take it over. So $6 million, I mean, you're going nowhere. We can't do it, Carl. It just can't happen.
Well, with all due respect, that is an opinion, but we are working through some serious design processes on that at the moment.
Is this the way to do the business? Is this the way to do the business? Well, Councillor Kennedy is saying that, you know, there's not enough money to do it. You're saying that there is enough. My question is this the way that we should do the business?
Well, I'm saying that we're actually doing some detailed pavement design and analysis on it at the moment to come up with a solution that's going to be workable moving forward.
Which is what?
Well, at this stage, we're overlaying the existing pavement. Taking the corduroy out is not an affordable option for anybody. You'd be better off walking away from the road if you're looking at making that level of investment. The process that's been used to date on the state highways has been a progressive one of lower cost overlays regularly. We're trying to move away from that to be taking it over, so we can do some enhancements to that as well. We've already done an amount of work that we're monitoring in terms of deterioration, and that's relative to deeper overlays or strengthened overlays that we're looking at.
Have we got further time to discuss it, this sort of thing? It's a pretty big project, isn't it?
Can we just keep moving around?
Sorry.
I'll come back to you,
Okay.
Councillor Davis. Councillor Hartshaw.
Carl, can you confirm where that special road starts from?
So it starts from the state highway turn-off.
So when we went on a wee southern tour, all that rock work that's going on and the sea erosion, is our council going to be 100% into that, or not 100%?
That's 100% funded at the moment.
At the moment, yeah, but the sea's not going to stop coming.
No, but we've put in for a significant resilience improvement on that section of road for the next 3 years as well. So that's the increase in investment that we're looking at on that side of things.
So, Your Worship, so post, if there was a potential handover, there's still responsibility of NZTA to subsidise. Can you just explain, Carl, what those future conditions would be?
So at this stage, what we've been working through with the senior members of the agency in terms of a transition plan was that maintenance and operations would transfer over to council at a slightly increased financial assistance rate to factor in the extra amount of spending. And that was discussed as a way of making this a cost neutral solution. Emergency works, major capital works such as bridge replacements and significant pavement renewals were still going to be 100% funded. That was the proposition that was put forward to the agency, and it was agreed to by the senior members, but that has yet to be agreed to by ourselves and the Waka board.
Councillor Hartshaw.
Well, if they've agreed to that, I can't see any point of handing the road over to us if they're going to. Yes, just seems we're just putting ourselves neck on the line. If they're agreeing to do all the major, bridges or damage, or it's just ludicrous for our council to take it over.
Okay, well, I can't comment on that. Naturally it needs to go before both council and the board in its entirety for a final decision. But like I said, there are other councils that are looking at their other options as well with regards to that. So it's not by any means a done deal. So we'll just have to take it from there.
Just through worship, and again, Carl, and regards to the additional funding for Jackson Bay Road, if we agreed to this budget today, and the process whereby they propose that we do take it over and comes to council with all the conditions evaluated, would that funding likely to be changed post negative decision by council, considering we're looking down a 3-year program?
Well, so what we're looking at this stage, we're really focused on getting funding for the next 3 years, not 10 years. We're already guaranteed 100% funding from the agency for the next 3 years. So the approach that we've taken is let's make the most of that. We've also asked for slightly more in terms of our local roads as well. Now, when it comes down to the long-term plan side of things and the finer nitty-gritty, if we've asked for less, but we need more, and the LTP process decides that we want more, and we've been granted less, we can't go back and ask again. So we're in a better position to ask for more now and have the backing of council to say that we're actually prepared at this stage to back the level of investment that we've set. If, for whatever reason, further down the track, when the final budgets are set, it's decided that something needs to be less, we can reduce that ourselves without any negative effect. We've got available funding if we choose to increase it, but it's no negative effect.
So between now, between now and I suppose fitting the final budget, is it likely that the board will want to see assurance, I'm talking about Kotahi board here, assurance from councils that the special purpose roads will be handed over in 3 years?
That hasn't come into the equation at this stage.
Because we haven't seen what those finalised conditions are to be tabled. So best to go up front, in my opinion, to put the money in and wait for that guidance from the Kotahi board.
Well, councillors, the real question is, are we going to accept the special purpose road going to Jackson Bay back to become a ratepayer liability? You know, if they're going to hand it over with $6 million worth of work done, we're doing a little piece of the old Christchurch Road for $3.5 million at the moment. I mean, that road down there is in atrocious condition. It's shocking. And we drove it recently. And look, I'm happy with the rest of the proposal, but I can't vote for a document that gives someone the idea that we're going to take that road back, because I'm certainly not going to vote for it.
Well, you know, I find it difficult having a vote on a document that I find difficult to understand. It's
through the chair, like I just getting this document is, and I understand you've put a lot into it, of work into it, but it is that comprehensive that it's actually, I found it all completely confusing. And in fact, the only thing that I got actually in my brain out of it was the fact that we need to protect our assets, you know, and that they haven't been well maintained. But anything wider than that, I can't even make a decision on today because I just don't get it. I'm sorry.
So you're presenting to Buller in February?
Yep.
So Buller are not part of what you had intended to pull in tomorrow?
I can show you, but they've just seen you've got their,
so
you've got their numbers as well, so I'm presenting nothing different to them.
So, look, I know a number of the councillors and mayor up there, there's no way they'll go with handing over the Karen flood.
It's really clear in that document that there's no decision made.
No. So just
I think that's the important thing to remember. We've made it really clear there is no decision made.
Just through worship, all we're asking for is supporting the funding allocation for the next 3 years. We're not resolving to take the special
we're we're not prejudiced by doing that.
No.
In any way, so there's no detriment.
There's no commitment from council.
There's no detriment to us, and we're not committing ourselves as we adopt this document. Is that our position, that there's no detriment to us?
There's no detriment to us.
We're not prejudiced anyway.
Because the primary focus on this document is the next 3 years. It does look at further out, but that's because we need to look that far out. But the funding allocations are in 3-year lots. So we'll be having the same conversation in 2 years' time for the next allocation. And that's when it really will be critical regarding the special purpose road.
So can you confirm?
At this stage, it has no effect.
Can you confirm then Deputy Mayor Carruthers' understanding, which is that it's putting it in, it's not.
Whether we are not prejudiced.
You're not binding by this document.
In relation to the special purpose road by adopting this document in any way, shape or form.
Mark, we've made it really clear in there, if you read in there, and I know it's a difficult document, it's not our problem, it's kind of like that.
Yeah, but I kind of do feel like it could have been more summary.
We've got a summary coming for you, and it's part C of this document, which is something that'll be more digestible for you. So we have got that, and we're
That
building
makes
that
it
later.
difficult still today to be able to kind of.
I think the bottom number there is the number you should focus on. We've got a strong evidence base. If you decide not to, push back on the SPR, those bottom numbers won't change anyway. So that's those, data percentages, and really what we're focused on is focusing on your bridges, asset management, and your pavements. And they're the sort of percentage increases. And you have not made a position to say that you will commit to the transition.
Yeah.
So, Deputy Mayor Carruthers, can you give us in your view a way forward here?
Well, we need to, I think, adopt your recommendation. Is that what you're asking us to do?
So, Your Worship, the recommendations within the report are
Yes,
still applicable without blindness in between.
Yeah, this is without prejudice, so is that I haven't actually seen your agenda item and what's been proposed. The recommendation. Sorry, I apologise for that.
That's right. What's being proposed is that council receives the report. B, council endorses the recommended draft program business case attached in Appendix 1. That's the business case you put forward. C, that we approve the submission of the draft program business case to Waka for assessment, and if supported for inclusion, and if supported by Waka for inclusion into the 2021-24 National Land Transport Program. And goes on D, if supported by Waka approves the inclusion of the principles of the draft program business case in the draft 2021-31 long-term plan. But C for me, or B for me, says council endorses the recommended draft program business case attached in Appendix C, which includes the SPR return to council after 3 years. That's how I read it. Am I reading it wrong?
Well, these fellows say that's not what it says.
To take this forward, can we put an amendment to that motion that states that it very explicitly, council does not make a decision in relation to the special purpose road at this stage?
Mm-hmm. Well, I would want to know more information.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I'm not comfortable.
Can we do that, Your
making
Worship?
any-
Capturing that very clearly in there? And then I think that will capture it.
Right. It's fair to say there's a level of, is there any other discussion before I try and wrap it up? Councillor Kennedy.
Just on like everyone, the document was difficult to read, but to me it looked like that we're going to spend less money on our gravel roads, trawling through the document, and there seemed to be not a great deal more money spent on doing the drainage, which for me, high shoulder and drains, it's the most important thing on our roads. That's the worst part about them. someone talk about that?
Just to clarify that, we have reduced some of the maintenance meddling cost on the unsealed roads. A lot of that has been unnecessary, purely because the way that they've been graded to date hasn't been ideal. We are making changes in that, and it's resulting in some savings for us. The drainage as well. So routine drainage maintenance we have increased significantly. So we've increased that
285,000 per annum
from 210 to 285. So there has been an increase in that. Well, sorry, from 64 to 285. And that's relative to what we've been doing lately. We have been spending more rather than what we've had allocated in the past.
Okay, no, that's fine. I suppose the onus is on us to make sure the work's being done to an adequate standard. But that's all I've got. Thank you. But I do worry about the gravel roads not having more metal on them.
But is there any reason why we can't move to resolution at the present time?
There is more to the presentation, but the last bit of the presentation is around capability and collaboration. And if you need to move on with your agenda, I'm happy for that.
What I propose, councillors, is to move the following resolutions. And I'll be moving it there. That A, council receive the report. B, council endorses the recommended draft program business case attached as Appendix 1. C, council approves the submission of the draft program business case to Waka for assessment and, if supported by Waka, for inclusion into the 2021-2024 National Land Transport Program. D, if supported by Waka, approves the inclusion of the principles of the draft program business case into the draft 2021-31 long-term plan. And E, that council at this stage does not support the transfer of the SPR status of the Haas to Jackson Bay Road. Is it covered? Could I ask for a second so I can test the floor? Thanks, Councillor Neal. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Those against? Okay, thank you. Motion's carried. Thank you, Ricky, and don't feel bad about being weak in the sandwich. We do it every day.
No, I'm not feeling bad about it, but yeah, you've got some work to do on that discussion, and it has been around for 2 years, and we have worked on it. And yeah,
we haven't.
No.
Yes. There's a political element. There's a political element.
There's a political element to it.
Look, thank you very much for that. It's appreciated.
Thank you.
Through the mayor, can you just have noted that I abstain from that?
I wasn't quite sure if the hand was just shaking.
Yeah, no, it was neither.
It's better to vote for or vote against this. This is my advice to you. Abstaining just means you can't make your mind.
Well, sometimes it's the case.
But I actually simply can't, because I don't feel like, I feel like there needs to be more discussion around getting my head around it in the first place.
I understand. I understand.
Oh, sorry, knock your glasses over.
Yeah. Next, thanks. The next item on the agenda is the speed limit register, and Carl's going to speak to the report.
Right. Thank you, Worship. Councillors, good afternoon. So, as you know, we did have a session in November where we went through in fine detail the proposed changes and made some decisions on what the outcomes were going to be based on the feedback we got from the public and the hearings. So I'll take that as you've read the report, but I'll just note that there was a couple of changes that we couldn't make, specifically 70 Ks. We did put that to the transport agency as an option, as a decision. So we weren't still not permitted to use 70k. So in terms of the old Christchurch Road, we did have a backup plan of 60. So the backup option for that comes into play, which is 60. Given that it's looking at 60, then we don't necessarily need to look at 50 in front of the marae. It's actually reasonably slow at that stage anyway, so it won't make a huge difference. The 70 as an option on Canary Road was also not an option, but we didn't have a backup plan on that, so that just stays at 80. But we end up changing the positions for the 50 at the start to just pass service engineering, and at the far end, at the Canary end, we're bringing it back to Pine Tree Road. So that was the main changes to look at in that area there.
Thanks, Carl. Well, councillors, you've got the report, and it's on pages 16 to 33 of your agenda, and we'll open it for discussion. And Paul, would you like to start?
Certainly. Thank you. So I think I've missed something here, because I still don't understand how we got to be in this place in the first place. I do remember, of course, that a previous Associate Minister of Transport about mid last year raised this issue about lowering speed limits on roads. This, of course, is the same minister that would have us all driving electric cars made out of recycled cardboard. But she was pretty clear, though, that this was applying to, it was not a blanket approach. It was not being across the country, not being applied across the country. And it was for roads considered dangerous. And in that much I certainly support it. But I just don't understand how we got from that position to this. I've missed something in the middle. I'd like to understand that. As for some of just a couple of comments on the specifics, I still don't understand quite the Arahuta one at the marae. I can't, on the table, I can't understand it, and the map, it looks like the key is plastered over top of Arahuta. I can't see on that map how it works. There was another comment was at Franz, and where I do support the move to 30 kilometres per hour. In urban areas, downtown areas, I support 30 kilometres per hour because a lot of pedestrian traffic. And at Franz, 30 makes sense, but then the state highway would still be 50.
So just on that, it was announced yesterday by Jim Harland from the Transport Agency that they will be reviewing the West Coast network next year with regards to the speed management plan. So taking that into account, they will also be considering what limits have been set by us on the side roads and other roads within areas. So they'll be looking at Franz Joseph as well.
Okay.
In that context.
Because it does seem anomalous. The Kamara Sanctuary Place, Kamara Junction, has been left at 50 kilometres per hour, and I don't understand why. When it's actually quite a vast subdivision now, and why that's not lower.
It was 100.
Yes.
So 50 was more appropriate for that environment.
It was quite close built up area. I would have thought 30 would have been more appropriate. That's just my view. The Ukarito Road, the Councillor Kennedy's patch. I'm not treading on your toes here, Councillor Kennedy. But was there, and that's been lowered to 80 kilometres per hour. Was there any thought there about the Kiwi?
Yes, so the original proposal was 60, but from feedback that we gathered, the council decided it was going to be more appropriate.
Don't know that 20 kilometres is going to do much to save the Kiwi. And what about, doesn't look like there's any change on the Strand, for instance?
No, there's no change in the bridge itself, which is presently 30.
Oh, 30. And the other one that stood out for me was Seven Terrace Road, Aremu, which has gone from 100 to 30.
So that was a request by the residents. The residents actually campaigned for that early on in the piece. That was one of the catalysts for a review of the speed limits in various areas.
Right down to 30.
Down to 30, yes.
Because of course, I mean, it is essentially a country road, and I don't know if anyone's driven at 30 kilometres on a country road. It takes an awful long time to get to the end of it.
It's actually not a very long road and not much wider than your average driveway.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with it, but yeah, I just thought that was 50 would have been, I would have thought would have been suitable. But thank you.
Councillor Davison.
No, we've already had a good discussion and vote on all this, so nothing further from me.
Councillor Neal.
Yes, thank you. I've had some really strong feedback from the public about the Arataki Old Christchurch Road. It was proposed at 80 and then we tried to go for 70 and then dropped it down to 60, and I take responsibility for making that motion. The feedback was very strongly that if they'd known it was going to go to 60, a lot more people would have submitted on that. So I think you've just got an email this morning, I just got one also that states their claim, and this particular person that sent the email has spoken to quite a few of his neighbours. So I would like us to re-look at that one, and maybe it should be...
Just really wish I would support Jane on the Arataki Old Christchurch Road revisiting it, considering the current project as well that's undergoing there and the resealing. And we propose to defer that, to align that with Kotahi and revisit it next year. I'm not sure if it's council support that, but the other option is just to reduce the 60k to the top of past the marae and revisit the second component in the new year.
Could it be 60 to just past the marae?
That's right.
A certain distance, doesn't it? And then 80 rather than 100?
We could certainly hold off the final step on this road and look at reviewing it further down the track once we've done the full upgrades.
So we couldn't just say 60 and 80 now?
Yes, we could do a
Because it would still be taking into account all of the submissions. And
I'd go with that too.
If you refer, and to be honest, like it makes perfect sense too. If you look at the Hokitika Arthurstown Canary one, over on south side, we've kept that at 80k, and that's, I mean, I don't see that as being much different at all to the Arataki Road. And yeah, so I wouldn't see any reason why it wouldn't stay. But I do agree it has to slow down past past the marae.
So
I apologise, we didn't get this better.
So can I just clarify there? The Old Christchurch Road, we're looking at the first part to be 60k and then 80k.
No, just to defer back to the rest until further.
So 60k and then defer the balance.
And tie it in with the next review.
Is that what you want?
Councillor?
No, I thought we have the balance at 80.
Because we consulted on the 80k, so...
Then go to the 80k.
And would 50 or 60 be most appropriate for the first part?
60 is
61?
probably closer.
Yeah.
Could I just ask Francois what his view is on the speed outside the marae and then port.
Yeah, so I'd like it as low as possible, obviously. There's a lot happening around the marae constantly now, and the vehicles are going way too fast. So I'd rather see it at 50, if that's a possibility. But however, if we land on 60, then that's fine. But as long as it's not 80.
Thanks, Francois. Paul?
Yeah, I agree. The lower the better.
Okay, so is the feeling that we're getting here that if the old Christchurch Road, the first part past the marae is 50k, after that it's 80?
Yeah.
General?
Can I just suggest that 50, the sign for that be about 100 metres past them, east of the marae, so there's time for the traffic to slow down, because you nudge your nose out from the driveway from the marae, and the cars and the trucks just belt down that road. One day it's going to be.
In the cemetery. Fantastic.
And the other one that I've had feedback on, is Canary Road, and I think we proposed it at 60, which was what we had for consultation, and now we've gone to 50, 80, 50, and I have had feedback that it should just be 60 all the way through. I don't know if other people have had comments come back to them.
Jenny, Councillor Kotahi.
Yep, so through the chair, just following on from Jane, to be honest, I didn't get feedback from other people, but I felt like this is great. Thank you for actually providing the visual look to this now, because it's actually made more sense to what we were approving, but it's also made me look at that and go, but that's actually quite confusing, the decisions now we've made around Hokitika, Arthurstown, Canary, because we've gone 50, then we've gone 80, then we've gone, we'll keep going that way and it's 50, but go around the tram and now you're 40, and yet you can go over to Southside and be at 80, and you can come on the inland route and you're at 60. So, like if I was a driver, I'd be quite confused about the whole thing, really. I do wonder why that Canary stretch that we've gone to blue with at 50, whether that shouldn't actually be 60. I mean, you get it when you're just coming out of town, 50k, but then you're picking up to 80. It doesn't make a great deal of sense going from 80 back to 50 to drive through that little piece when everything else around it is sort of either 80k or 40k.
In the discussion, if I recall, it was trying to shift the 50k further out of town, so that when people were coming into town, they'd slow down while they came store there. And I believe that was that's what the discussion was.
Yeah, which they've done here. Yeah. So they've bought that 50k now, has come further, but correct me if I'm wrong, by service engineering.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's where the 50k is now, is out by service engineering, and that makes total sense to start slowing them down about there. And then an 80k seems fine, but then you coming back round Canary Road, and then all of a sudden you go back to 50k. Whereas I believe that, it's not in town, but it's still, and there isn't a great deal of difference between 50 and 60. I thought keep it within the same as what you can do if you're turning to go inland at the 60, just like we've done out all around, if you look out round heading out Mahanapura and stuff, that's all at 60k.
Reason why I hear what you're saying. The reason why I think the discussion went from moving that 50, changing what's currently the 70k's to a 50k was around the West Roads entrance and exit, the proposed crossing for the cycle trail, like the proposed road crossing, and particularly for the township. And then I think that turned into, the current 70 changes at the Shenandoah up there. And then it was like, okay, should we, I think it might have even been Eugene that said bring it back, which was discussion at the time, bring it back to a Pine Tree Road because that dropped. And that was talking about 50. But I think initially, and what's changed is we'd said the yellow bit would be 70. And now that's flipped back to 80, but I think in our discussions, we were going to flip that to 60 if we weren't allowed at 70. And that's where it looks funny, because you go 50, now 80, then back to 50. But if it was 50,
It's the only other,
50,
if you look at
60,
all the other maps, there's no other 50k on any of the others. We've either stuck with 60 or 80.
Yeah, I know, but I think the discussion was around that. We had all those submissions from West Road saying that the truck drivers pulling out of West Roads felt that it was too fast to be going any faster than sort of 50 past there, and the cycle trail crossing, getting the cars slowed from exiting the, you know, driving past the bridge to where the crossing would be, as having that 50.
The other thing that we've got to contend with is like Latham said, we've got the school children as well, but we've also got a lot of cyclists on that wilderness trail that will come through, generally on the road in that narrower area. So the lowering to 50 was a more appropriate speed for that general area as an urban centre.
I'm comfortable with the 50, very comfortable. It's the yellow part, service engineering down to where it goes back to the 50. I'm just wondering if that should be down to 50 or 60 there.
Yeah, well, so we originally talked about 60.
Yeah.
And in some contexts, 60 is quite slow for those straights and that S-bend, and that's why there was a desire to look at 70 as a better option. 80 is a bit fast, 70 would be ideal, but we don't have 70 as that option that we can choose. So probably the best way forward at this stage is to leave it at 80. It's consistent with the sort of the northern end of town as well for here, going into an 80k zone from a 50k area, rather than it's another conversation that we should probably have with the community if we do look at lowering it down to 60 again.
We had proposed 60. Were there many submissions? I mean, we've got lots from West Roads. They might focus more on the 50. Did they focus strongly on that bit going down to 80?
It was a bit mixed in terms of for and against on that one. I think there was probably slightly more against the 60 on Canary Road than there was for it. And rightly so, it probably is a little bit slow. I mean, to slow the traffic down to set it at 60, which is below the mean speed anyway, we would have to do some engineering to that road in itself. And that could be achieved through changes in the road marking as a simple solution to make the road feel narrower. And that was always the intention if we did go down a level to that 60. It gives us the ability to increase the width of the parking and the shoulder on the other side by moving those edge lines slightly closer to the centre line. Potentially we could look at opening that up for cyclists on those sides as well, and provide more room for them. But it was a little bit contentious, so it's perhaps something that we could go back out to the community and have another conversation with, in much the same way that we could do for the Kotahi Kotahi area, and engage with them a bit more and work out a solution that works for everybody.
So it's my understanding that we are extending the 50k to service engineering, then it stays at 80, but it's going out to be reconsulted, and it drops to 50 at what point?
Just past Pine Tree Road.
So it's exactly
just before you go to the
plan.
Shenandoah Road.
Yeah, okay. Around the table, quite happy with that?
Yeah.
Thank you. Carry on there, Carol.
You're up to me, so thank you for that.
Councillor Hartshaw. Councillor Hartshaw on the right this time, not the big picture.
Yeah, no, I'm right. Nothing to say there. Thank you.
Councillor Kennedy?
No, I suppose we had the discussion. I look forward to us doing the other roads in the district. So we've got a cohesiveness. I'd actually like the consultation, if possibly, tacked on to the annual plan, perhaps, or something, so it doesn't cost us as much money. Yeah, and thanks, Paul, for worrying about stepping on my toes out at Okarito. I don't know whether a Kiwi would survive if it got hit at 60k. To be fair, what's the other thing? Just on the Arahura Road, I'd back. Oh, sorry, the old Christchurch Road. I'd back the 80k. I'd also, if Francois wants that 50k out in front of the marae, I'd back that as well. Cool, thank you.
Thank you. Francois?
Happy with all the commentary.
Councillor Kotahi?
Yeah, no, I support around the 50k for the marae and then 80k for the Arataki Road. I can understand, yeah, your conversation around the Canary Road dropping back to that 50k at this point actually now, so that's so good. The rest of them all look fine to me.
Councillor Martin?
Thanks, Your Worship. Yes, some feedback on those two roads, but also on the Lake Kaniri Road. I think there's been correspondence into council and councillors around that, and the 60, Milltown 60, which I don't think there was that much correspondence. It's just the getting to the lake, and then also the fact that maybe we haven't addressed the right part of the lake, which we can't fix now, which is actually the bit speed. But people are concerned about people speeding, which is actually around the lake frontage. So I think that lake discussion should be parked status quo and part of that review of the valley as well, because I think it'll be the same as what Jane said about the old Christchurch Road. I think, had it been going to 60 and 80, it would have, and that was our proposed consultation discussion, I think it might have triggered some more submissions. And I think we're going to end up with probably an element of non-compliance, because it's probably not pragmatic to have those speeds out there. So I think getting the people that live out there on board is a necessary step. And I think we could achieve that through the discussion with the valley as well, to look at that as one, the valley connecting through like Dorothy Falls and through into the lake, the speeds around the lake, and then the speeds back to town as a one thing, and propose that the current 100k stands.
Okay, so let me understand that. So the Lake Canary section, excluding Milltown and excluding Hens Bay, remain at 100, but is reviewed. We know that the Hens Bay is going to have a temporary speed limit again, as it did last year, at 30k, and the locals will be wrapped with that. But that will be reviewed as well in the next section. Is that, have I got that right?
I think so. I think that's the correct stretch of road. And I think having
Does that include Sunny Bite?
No, so that's the bit that we haven't done. So we didn't do Sunny Bite Road, and we didn't do Hens Bay, and we didn't do all the hills that climb up the back. And I think that's where the locals would like that discussion, right? Like we do a temporary traffic speed reduction each year, don't we?
So what we're doing is we'll put up a 30k restriction through that village area at the lake. Yep. And that'll just be temporary over the summer season while there are extra people in the area.
Yep.
Both sides, like going from Sunny Bite through to Hens Bay, do that all
Speed humps there deal with that.
through there, do you mean? Sorry?
Sunny Bite's got a lower speed on it at the moment, but it's got more speed humps, but we can reduce that further as well.
But keeping the...
Because there's a lot of people that walk that road, particularly, over the summertime as well. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
I think what's been proposed.
So we're talking about keeping the Lake Canary stretch of the road at 100k status quo for now, and consulting as part of the...
So what was decided on was a change to 80k from the existing 170 change through to Hurunui Jacks.
Yeah. It's a status quo.
That stays, but the rest of the lake road was going to be at the 100 still. Out to the lake.
That's correct.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm proposing that whole stretch we revisit as part of the next stage and address that, that because there is that issue of cyclists still on the road, which hopefully we can address with taking the wilderness trail off the road. So there's a few things up in the air. I'm just saying there is a strong discomfort from people that live out that way that we haven't got it right, and this is our chance maybe to get it right. And
it's critical that we get it right, and if it takes longer, it takes longer. Deputy Mayor Carruthers.
I agree with what Lathan says, nothing else to add.
What I propose is that the resolution will be A, council receive the report, and then B, that the report will, the changes will include 50 kilometres per hour past the marae, then to 80 kilometres per hour for 100 metres past the marae, where the sign starts past the marae. Second part, that we will revisit the speed limits on the old Christchurch Road in the next review and include Kotahi and Quitarangi in that review. That we will revisit the speed limits on Canary Road, where it will be 50k to service engineering, then 80k until Pine Tree Road, and then 50 from Pine Tree Road, and that speed limit will be revisited. And that on the Lake Canary Road, the status quo will remain with at 100k, and it will be revisited along with Hands Bay, Sunny Bight, and around the back of Lake Canary in the review that follows this part of the procedure.
So through the chair, does that mean, because at the moment the Lake Canary Road around the lakes is showing 40k, and that's from Sunny Bight right through, so we're still, are we saying to just leave it?
Yep. And then B, that council endorses the recommended draft program. The changes and recommendations listed, along with the amendments above, be adopted and incorporated into the Westland District Speed Limits Register, with the changes coming into effect on the 1st of May 2021. And C, Waka Kotahi is forwarded a copy of the revised Westland District Speed Limits Register, so the changes made can be officially gazetted. And D, that staff be directed to advertise the changes coming and the time frame for them coming into effect. I just want to check with Carl, are you happy with that as a resolution?
Yeah, I'm just a little confused. Could you read the Canary Road piece out a wee bit again?
Canary Road towards the lake?
So Canary Road, was that changing, or was
Canary Road is 50 kilometres an hour to service engineering.
Yep.
Then 80 kilometres an hour until Pine Tree Road.
Yep.
And then 50 kilometres an hour from there.
Okay, no, that's fine.
You quite happy with that? So that resolution's right?
Yeah.
I'll move the resolution and I'd ask someone to second it. Councillor Martin, thank you very much. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you very much. We don't have to move on to tidy. Thanks for that, Carl.
Thank you, Carl.
Yeah, it's a difficult process, but it's part of what we do, isn't it?
That is what we do.
So before we move into public excluded, I've got one more person I want to thank, and that's Meg. Now, the reason I want to thank Meg is that you won't see what happens before the meetings, where everything is laid out on my desk, and I'm instructed. Thanks, Don Hibbs. I'm instructed on what to say and when to do it. Her run sheets are brilliant, and the only problem we have with the run sheets is when I flip to the next one without, without quite noticing. So thanks, Meg. I really appreciate what you do. Very good value. Now I'd like to move that, or get a councillor.
With the additional agenda item.
What's that? Oh, it is too.
On your run sheet.
Thank Meg again, Worship.
Yes, on your run sheet.
Thanks, Meg. She's the body here. Right. Councillors, the urgent item was the Ross Chinese Garden impacted by lake water levels. And Louis, do you wish to talk to that, or Fiona? Chloe, would you like to talk to it? It was raised by Paul initially, and it is something that's creating tension in the Ross community. And so an open discussion, I think, would be very useful.
Through the chair too, just on our trip down south, I did happen to take quite a number of photos. So if anyone wants a visual of what we're talking about, I have plenty on my phone.
I'll try and be brief. The challenge is currently the Chinese garden, as it's been built, has been flooded by the level of the lake. And the level of the lake, as currently stands, when that was developed by the mining company at the time, the lake level was determined as a level above sea level. And there's also a circumference around the lake that is up to the measures that was put into the consent. Now, the current lake level has not been exceeded, and the circumference of the lake is still within the consent. So I'll just make that statement. So that there's also there's a culvert under the road, which is the outlet for the lake once it reaches that final level, so it can actually be discharged back to the river, that water body. And we haven't reached that level of that culvert either. Right, so just for the purpose of understanding the lake level. Then, but further to that, the road, the lake, the inlet into the lake, none of this is under council control. This is a matter of regional council is actually responsible for managing the that part of it. So also I can mention that the current road adjacent to the lake is not a council road. It sits on private property. So there is an actual paper road, but that road's currently not in correct position. So it sits on private land. And the land is, as I said, none of that is on council property. It's all private land, other than the paper road. But the paper road actually physically sits in the lake. It needs to be resurveyed. Right. So currently there is activity up in the river, and but mainly the problem is there's continuous gravel being moved down the river. The river level has risen, and there is an outlet that was constructed as well from the lake to discharge into the river, and that has become an inflow now into the lake from the river. And it's not acting as an outflow, but an actual inflow. And the reason for that is what we can figure out is that the river level has risen. So there's been ongoing activity by the local community to prevent the river from flowing into the lake, and that just by shoveling in with hand tools, trying to close that inlet into the lake. And that's been rather, every time a storm comes through, it washes out and the flow comes back into the lake. So there's two parties involved here in regards to how the river now flows into the lake. And those two parties are Regional Council and DOC. And the interest from DOC is around fish and connectivity to the sea and so forth. And I don't want to elaborate on that, but there is that when the consent was issued at the time, the preference was for the river not to enter the lake, because that would disconnect some of fish species ending up in the lake, and with disconnecting that connection to the sea. So actually, there things is actually some whitebait species that actually have to have that connection to the ocean from the river, and that would breach that issue. So at present, we believe as a solution to this problem, we would recommend probably the best cost beneficial way of fixing this is to relocate some of those structures in that Chinese garden and bring them to the correct level that then meets the consented level of the lake. There is also the road issue that needs to be sorted with private owners and put the road in the correct position. And the only function then from council is the culvert under the road. Council needs to maintain them and keep that clean. Okay, so from debris, so that does fill up with rocks and stones as the storms come through and the level rises and falls there. And there is some flow coming off the road for drainage. But that's the function of council is only to maintain the culvert maintenance. A option would be to lower the culvert, so we actually have an outlet from the lake at a lower level, but that would be very costly to do. So we suggest as I said, to raise those structures that's currently flooded in the garden and relocate them or lift them up to an appropriate level, which is, I think, just off the cuff, about 1.5 meters. We need to raise those structures to get them out of the water and bring them up to a level where they can or not flood in the future or meet that consented level of the lake.
Thanks. Paul, you raised the shoulder, you lead.
So it's a mess, isn't it? But my understanding is that there wasn't a problem with the level of the lake until there was a flood recently. And then after that flood, it didn't return to.
Yeah, maybe I can explain. I think what's the lake level has always been a lot lower than the consented level, correct? And it naturally drained into underground tunnels under the town. That is now silted up, we believe, and that outlet is no longer functioning, so it doesn't naturally drain away anymore. And so the level has just risen. We've had a lot of rain lately, and certainly it's contributed to the lake now filling up. But it's that natural drain is basically stopped.
Well, I wouldn't say stopped. No, so it's slower.
Slow. Yeah.
So the lake level is lowered again since our last visit out there. So it's just not fluctuating as quickly as it used to in the past.
So it used to be yes, quite a bit lower than it was, and hence the community group built the Chinese gardens. Even then, it was still well above the waterline. The last time I looked at it, anyway. And at the end of the day, even though the consent is for quite a bit higher than what it even is now, it really is just a hole in the ground that's been allowed to fill up with water. It's not really a lake. The fact is that there's been an awful lot of community effort has gone into these Chinese gardens, and someone must have approved the location of the equipment that's there, the seating and the pagoda or whatever it's called. And they weren't just, I'm sure they weren't just plonked.
But personally, there's no reference to any approvals being provided for the actual level of so that was purely done by the community. And I think of there's been no, I think, reference to the actual lake level, or what could be the maximum lake level when that garden was constructed. What was referenced, I understand, was some rock work that was put in by the miners around the pond. It's probably more the reference to, which is unfortunately lower than the consented level of the lake.
So it seems.
My understanding, Paul, is that there's a community group that has a lease with DOC around the side where the Chinese garden is, and background where the floating golf ball areas. They have a lease around there with Department of Conservation.
So unfortunately, there was no formal approval process followed it seemingly from records, but as I said, council was never involved because this is on either DOC land or private land.
So perhaps through your worship, perhaps it's an opportunity for the council to help do the right thing by the Ross Chinese Garden Group and help them.
So just to clarify, so the community group did approach council at the time with their plans, however they didn't require any permissions. That's why it's not that they went ahead without permissions. They didn't require any permissions for their proposals.
Thank you. Yeah, so maybe the council can step in and help find the solution.
Do you have a suggestion?
There's one suggestion that will come out from the garden group itself will be to stop the interference, because I understand it's not just with every time there's a storm within Jones's Creek, but also a little bit of human effort as well. So I think they would suggest that would be a way to address the issue is at Jones's Creek. The other solution is, as Louis says, would be to physically move those structures up a little higher. Maybe the council, as a gesture, could help with it.
Through your worship, we did have a meeting with DOC on this subject on Monday. Tim Shaw was the representative. He has been liaising with Billy Manera on the subject. Following that meeting, both DOC and council agreed that the best solution is to raise or move the structure. The only way to stop the river permanently getting is to actually build a considerable stop bank to stop it from going into the lake. DOC didn't see a problem with that, but it'd come at a cost, and it's not a cost council was willing to wear.
The lake looks better higher.
I'm just going to hand this around. That just might be useful for everyone just to have a quick look at, because that's showing where the current structure is, but where there would be, as you speak, Louis, that room, because there's quite a bit more up on the bank face.
There's room to move it. Or to raise it in situ where it is now and actually have it built, like a bridge to it.
Were the community group leaders involved with your discussions on Monday?
So Tim was going to talk to Billy following that discussion, which I think he has, and he's also talked to Charlie Beth at the same time.
I think it's important to understand that council can't enter into any direction to what happens in the river. That's a regional council function.
Yeah.
That's not a council function, so we cannot.
Would require resource consent.
Yeah, and would require consent.
Whose land is it?
Ray Thomas and Birchfield's, some of it's called, it's co-owned.
And whereabouts are the structures? Whose land's that on?
It's on Dockland.
Dockland.
Is it correct?
Yeah.
Well, with Jones's Creek, it's always flowed into that pond area since it was formed, and prior to that, before they mined it, there was always a pond there. But if the council wanted to help, the best solution is to assist them by moving the structures up out of that present level it is now.
Sounds like the most practical way we could help.
Yep.
Did they, I think they had people come over, I could be completely wrong, from China to actually do some of the rock work around there.
To do the shingle roofing, I think it was quite complex.
Is it able to be
Maintain
moved at one
stability.
pace?
Yeah. So through your worship, if we cut to the chase, I'm willing to work with Doc and talk to Rings directly to see if we can come up with a solution.
Can we get a report to the February council meeting with some options? Because there's obviously different options and to know what we could do.
So what if they can't get lotteries?
Yeah.
Funding to do this?
I think they apply for funding whenever they can. But just to make a comment, I think it's key that the community supports, either supports or doesn't. So we need to make sure that the community supports a final solution, not that it's just Rings final solution. It's a community project as well. So I'll see what I can do with working with both parties.
Just through the chair, what's the relationship like with the Birchfield miners and the Chinese group?
I wouldn't say it's perfect.
Oh, so they wouldn't be able to help out with.
No, if council were acting on behalf, I think possibly.
I think that's a good discussion.
Yeah, I think that's
Simon, you'll know that keeps them forward.
Yeah, thank you.
Look, on that basis, someone like to move that, I'll just check my sheet here, Meg. So someone like to move that we move into public excluded. So thank you, Deputy Mayor Crothers and Councillor Neal. Those in favour?
Aye.
The meeting will be adjourned for 2 minutes to allow the committee to disconnect from Zoom, from the open section of the meeting, and reconnect via the second room, a Zoom invite for the public excluded section of the meeting. To those watching the meeting, have a great Christmas, brilliant New Year, stay safe, and we really appreciate your